Right, I need to do the gloves on the samurai. Move these out of the way, actually. And I also need to do uh, effectively some shoes. So I decided to go with this sort of arrangement. So we'll use just a flat brown with a dark undercoat and then a beige brown for the top coat. So a quick shake of the paint and get one of the receptacles back in to have a little go, make life a little bit easier. Move it off camera because it tends to distort the focus, that one. So as I said, this is a flat brown from Vallejo. And what we'll do first is get this on these samurai, just, as I say, to serve as a base coat for the gloves, which were sort of doe skin type leather, I believe. So brown's not a bad choice as an undercoat. Just getting in at the fingers, gripping around that weapon. And we'll do the shoes while we're here. And these are a sort of sandal affair. And there's a string running down the middle, well, passing through the big toe area. Which we'll see shortly. But if there's anything you can skimp on, it's your feet, the feet here on the model, because they'll get sort of, if you've done it correctly anyway, they'll get pushed into the background compared to the basing. But it's always nice to know that you've done it properly. Okay, and we have got banding around this figure that we're going to have to come and deal with as well. Short term, that's fine. We'll now pick up this one. Just for, as I say, for speed and consistency, we'll do the same thing for this one other figure back here. But we'll do the gloves first. Okay. Glove, glove, glove. Right, okay, now we can put this back over here. Start to go around the feet a little bit more. Okay. And this last one. The feet partially coming through, reflecting the poor quality, shall we say, of this particular footwear garment. footwear item, sorry. Right. Then whilst we're here, we've got this sort of stocking or sock effect that we need to deal with. So I've got another sort of brown here, which is a leather brown. So just because it's to hand, I'm going to try and take that one and use it. So another different paint receptacle of camera. Because we've got brown next to brown, we really want to make sure that this is a little bit different in tone. So that's fine. And there are straps on this one, which I probably will come back and do shortly. We'll just make sure the sock area is covered for now. Okay, fine. So I think I'll use that colour to do the straps on this figure around the shoe area, just to make sure that we've done that piece of work. And also up round here, around the top of the armour piece on the legging. I can see now a couple of areas here where we've got not good paint coverage, so we'll come back and deal with those a bit later. But actually what I will do, just while I'm in the mood for using this paint, is we'll put some on the handle of the sword. Again, we want it to be tonally different to any other brown that we're using around, so that's fine. I'm finding the swords very useful to pick the figures up, so I'm not going to do those anytime soon, because they're a really useful way of being able to pick a miniature up and work on a different section of the overall figure without putting your big fingers all over what you just painted. Good. Okay. Okay. So that's where we are. Have we got any more brown that I want to use this for? Yeah, this figure down here, obviously, as I said earlier. And the little sort of sock area type things. Okay. Anything else? I tend to do the arrows in a sort of grey and then white effect, so I shall leave that one for the time being. Don't think there's much to do on that one. So again, just same thing again on this one here. And again, what we're trying to do here is follow the sculpting, follow the model as much as possible. There are sections where you'll find that the sculpting doesn't sort of follow through, as it were. But if you can get a line going and then just be consistent in where you're dealing with that, then there's not usually too many problems. There, okay. So we're approaching the point where I need these figures to be ready, and we're a little way off. Next thing I'm going to do is Boneyard 9B, which is the next one in the sequence for this sort of waist belt that we've got on the figures. Pop some in a little pot. As this one's out front, let's do this one. Okay, normal rules apply. We're going to just try and catch the raised areas of the model, trying to avoid going too deep into the undercoat or the base coat, or certainly going off into another area. So if you can't get up reliably to the edge, don't. Just stick to the raised areas that you can catch without undue difficulty, especially if you're going for that more of a highlight effect rather than a mid coat, if that makes sense. And I'm happier with that here because, again, we're dealing with troops that are both bandits and presumably not very wealthy. Otherwise, their general sort of uniform, if you like, or general clothing would be a little bit different. Okay. Right, let's do those two. Let's move on to one of these. Oh, caught the edge there of the box for the bottom of the arrows. So that'll go on the list of things to tidy up. There we go. Okay, so I won't bore you with doing all of them, but that's the general principle. I'll see you shortly. Right, so I've done the belt type arrangement around the figures. I've done the little ties around the hands of these samurai. We're at the stage now where basically we can do most things in any order we wish. What I'm going to do now is get a drab. You may remember that I did the bow and some of the spears sort of halves and handles in the drab 12A. What I'm going to do now is get the 12B and start to put a few lines to represent grain effect up the areas that I've painted with the 12A. Let's move that out of your way. Put some in a pot. So what we've got here is the bow, and again I would normally sort of go across. What we're going to do here is just faintly line down the figure. Trying to sort of swirl it a little bit, just so that we get that subtle grain effect from a distance. I think some of the sort of upper class samurai type bows were sort of painted and lacquered. I have to go and remind myself about that. I'm checking out some of my reference material. But certainly in this sort of figure here, where we're looking more for the naturalistic effect, I think just a slight and subtle attempt to create a little bit of relief, if you like, or that sort of, as I say, effect that you get when you sort of see wood grain. You can have dots and swirls and dashes. If you do a little dot, try and go around it so that you create almost like a knotted effect. And this is actually quite a subtle effect, so don't knock yourselves out doing this too much. It's one of those things that does need to dry actually for you to see it a little bit better. So I'm going to do that to these weapons here, and then come back and show you what the next stage is. Right, I'm just going to use a brown base, just because it's out in front of me, to highlight the leather brown that I did for the samurai footwear. So apologies, I'll just get a little bit in the paint pot. This is quite a similar colour actually to the beige brown, but we will use the beige brown for the gloves in a moment. Let's just move these freshly painted spears out of the way. And all we're going to do is keep things very simple. Highlight the toe areas, highlight some of those areas around there. Really not going to go mad with this because it's A, it's footwear, and B, I haven't got the time to consider doing too much more than this. Okay. Actually, now I've seen it, I'm going to persist and just get these highlighted. Doing basically what I said I wasn't going to do, but there you go. I shouldn't use the phrase highlighted either. Picked out, I think, is the perhaps a more appropriate phrase. There we go. Gloves. The fingerprint. Sorry, the fingers of the gloves themselves down here. Bit inside. Turn the figure around a bit. There we go. So, the samurai while we're here. Not perhaps the most natural mid colour for that, but not too bad actually. And it does sort of make it look a little bit leathery, which I'm reasonably happy with. So what I want to do next, I think, let's have a look at these ones here. Maybe just use this to pick out a few areas on here. I know I've gone a bit rogue here with the choice of highlights, but this is actually working quite well across the range of the tonal browns. Oops. On the top there a bit. On the base. Yeah, not too bad at all in terms of a look. Right, okay. Same thing on this one then. Oops. You definitely can't see that, but sorry, what I was doing was laying the figure flat to be able to draw my brush across like that, so apologies for that. Up to you really whether you just go up to the boundaries of these sort of ties that go around the leggings, or whether you try and impart some sort of musculature or impression of the underlying leg itself. At the moment, to be honest, this is just the quickest way of doing it. And just making sure we get in and we don't miss any major parts. Okay, so not looking too shabby. I'll just do the same quick update on the guns themselves, but I think the time might have come to use not our gunmetal. If I get the right colour from the paint set here, I was going to use that oily steel that I mentioned earlier, which of course now is proving challenging to find. Oily steel, there it is. So I've got that and a gunmetal. So what I'm going to probably do is use this oily steel, but we'll have a little look at the colour. And I've deliberately left it next to a little bit of black there. Oops, come on. Thank you, camera. What we're going to do is push that out like that, and then I'm going to take a cocktail stick, sorry, and just try and mix a little bit of that in. Actually, I'm going to do a lot, just because I want this to be reasonably dark to begin with. Because what I'm going to do is put that on the gun barrels first, and then I'm going to use more of the actually that's too dark. I can see that already, that's too dark. So we'll quit that one out. We'll retrieve the oily steel again. We'll do that a bit more generously this time. I don't want to take down too much. That's probably enough actually. Just to take the edge off for the actual ironworks, if you like, of the musket. Sorry, what I'm doing here is going along the barrel, just letting it sort of flow into the recess of the weapon. Looking at the firing mechanism and the trigger as well, and then we'll do this way round. Two. There is also banding on here, but I'm going to come back and do that in a minute with the neat oily steel. This has had chance to dry a little bit. Do the same thing for this weapon. There we go. Back that side. Get the trigger mechanism. The firing section. That's it. Sorry about that, if it was slightly off camera. And then for these lower class troops, we'll just do that on their armour to begin with. Sorry, on their weapons to begin with. So that's the glaive. The sort of pickaxe effect that we've got going on here. Not really a pickaxe, is it? Just the pick. Not so much of the axe. It looks like a, you know, farming implement or similar, and I think that's the idea. I know some people don't paint the ends of the spears because they're metallic, but for me it's just too much brightness if you do that. And I want to come along this shortly with a much silverier or metallic looking paint, and we'll do the job properly, as it were. And that's much more of an axe effect there. Right. So you'll notice I haven't done the samurai yet, because we're going to do those with the, we're going to get those tonally a bit brighter. So just to fill in a bit of time, what I'm going to do next is find the grey to start doing the feathers on here. And what do I want to do with that one? I want this to begin with, which is 34C, so pretty much a mid-grey. Move this out of the way. What we're going to do here is just do a couple of things. What I like to do is catch the highlight, you know, the high edged pieces, all the bits that are proud of the sculpting, but I'm not trying to go too mad. I'm trying to flick it a little bit so that we get more of a feathered effect here. So I'm not trying to cover all of the top section completely, just give it a little bit of detailing like that. That's good enough. Then we're moving on, and I'm thinking about colours that are, or elements that are going to give us a bit of impact. But I have noticed that I haven't done the bandage on the figure with it covering his eye. Now I think I did that in Boneyard, so we need the B in the triad to kind of start picking out the fact that this guy's got a bandage over the eye. Most of that's actually obscured by the hair. And now I'm in an iron about whether I should put like a dried blood sort of effect on there, but I don't think so. I think you can see that's probably good enough. So what's next? I think a little piece of highlighting on the surcoat of the main samurai figure. So we'll find our Moss 26C. We'll start, let's move some of these other guys out of the way. Keep those a bit more self-contained. And we're going to do some very light touch highlighting on this guy. I think I might start with the rear of the figure. And again, apologies, I do struggle with not being able to go left to right, as it were. If you're going to highlight, make sure you remember that's what it is. It's a highlight that's just trying to accentuate some of the folds, the clothing, or pick out sections on things like weapons where light might have hit an edge. And you don't have to highlight every single edge, because sometimes that can sort of swamp the effect. And if you want to tone it down a bit, just use your finger. Sometimes that can be really useful. There you go. Right, okay. It's about this sort of time that I realised that I keep missing little sections out on the figures. So I haven't done the gloves on this one. Fortunately, the paint I was using is still in the tray. It's still usable. So we'll do that. Nice. It's perfectly acceptable when you're doing things like this, especially on gloves, just to pick out the odd bit, just to create that depth. You don't have to follow slavishly around all of the glove if you don't want to. Yeah, good. Okay. I think while I've got this brush here, we need to go around that one with some of the purple. So let's get the B in the triad for that purple. Just tidy that up while we're here. It may seem like we're going out of sequence, but when there's such a small number of figures, I quite like the idea of just tackling problems as I see them. And that's that one. Just these sections here around the foot that we need to concentrate on, because they're the sort of edge of the trouser, not the start of the shoe, if that makes sense. Done that. So we'll now move on just because I've got it in my mind, I'm going to finish off the feathers. And because I've put the top coat of the brown, sorry, of the black, I'm going to use just the 33B from the white section just to edge those feathers. We'll get this guy out here. What we're going to do here is try and pick a starting point. And I tend to do little draws along the where the sculptor has put feathers, and also sort of mix in a little bit of a dry brushing effect. Before you know it, you've picked out the feathers quite nicely. So we're just trying to catch the top there to pick out the feathered effect, and that's not too shabby actually. There we go. Fine. Okay. So if we take this figure now, we're pretty much there with this guy. He's got his bow as it stands. He's got his flesh done. He's got his quiver and set of arrows. The armor's sort of nicely highlighted there. We could do a third highlight coat on the flesh. So I'll maybe just take a look at that now quickly. But before I do that, I'm going to use the gunmetal on this guy's sword and this chap's sword, because I want that, as I say, to be slightly, tonally, I want that to be brighter than the armour for the peasant troops. So we'll take that. We'll run down here. So this is an army painter gunmetal. You can see it's quite bright just on its own. There you go. Leave that to dry a moment. Do the same thing on this samurai. And because this is the first coat, if you like, we're not trying to be highlighting anything. Okay, while we've got the paint out though, what I'm going to do on these guys is very much use this to edge the tops of weapons and put a little bit of lining on, so that we start to create an impression of depth on the actual weapon itself. I don't want to go too mad, because otherwise I might as well have painted it all in the gunmetal to begin with. I just want to try and do the edges and any sort of particular relief that might be on the weapon. I've taken the liberty of putting a bit of paint, sorry, a bit of water in the paint, because it felt particularly claggy at that point. And again, if you do too much on here, it can be really easy just to take it off with your finger like I just did then. I'd like to pretend I did that deliberately for the video, but I didn't. I just wasn't happy with what I'd done. So yeah, we're going to paint like that, get an edge on it. He says hopefully you can see that a little bit. We'll do the same thing to all these weapons. And I do want it to dry a little bit darker than that. This one. Fine, so we've done that one. This one. Okay, just a little bit on the edge of here. Perfect. And then we're going to do the guns and just run along top of the guns with this lighter mixture. Just to give us a bit of extra depth on the barrel and around this firing mechanism. And then the banding, I'm going to do that neat. As in neat with this neat colour. Weirdly, we got banding that side but not that side. But I'll just take that around there. Then we'll go on the top. Firing mechanism around the end of the barrel. Okay. Same thing with this one. Run down the banding. Try and accentuate the trigger mechanism and that sort of more decorative end piece in the main section of the barrel itself. Around the bandings. Trigger mechanism down here. And then again just down the top of the barrel this side. Managed to be at an odd angle there, so I'm going to tidy that up. Right, okay, so no other reason than it's in front of me in the paint tray and it's a convenient point to do it. I'm going to get the black grey out and start doing a little bit of subtle highlighting or layering, if you like, on the hair of the figures. So again, light touch, not trying to go mad here. With this sort of grey, we won't see too much of this being too stark, as it were. It can be a little bit more forgiving. This figure's got a headband that we haven't done yet, or I haven't done yet. I need to do that. Maybe catch a little bit of the raised detail like that. Bit on the armour. Okay. So I'm going to run around and do those, and then I'll join you again.